Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3891BN. Today's date is April 26th, 2026. And the title of the episode is Deep State Attempts Another Assassination. Trump holds all the cards. Attacks will only intensify. Have you ever seen something and instantly know it's going to turn heads? That's exactly what happened when I saw the Trump Never Surrender gold sneakers. These aren't subtle, and they're not supposed to be. Gold finish, red, white, blue details, never surrender right on the shoe. You put these on, people notice, period. What surprised me most, they're actually comfortable. Solid build, lightweight, and wearable. Not just something you buy and leave in the box. These are made to be worn, not hidden. And the message hits, never surrender, isn't just branding, it's an attitude. Whether you're out running errands or showing up somewhere you want to make a statement, these do exactly that without saying a word. Even if they're not your style, I bet there's someone in your life that would support these in a minute, and they make a great gift. If you got a Trump supporter, a collector, or someone with an unapologetic style, this is a win. They're unique, they're different, and they're bold. If you want to grab a pair, our amazing audience will get a 30% discount while inventories last. Go to themagaoffers.com/X22. That's themagaoffers.com/X22. Don't wait on this. Inventory is moving fast, and once these sell out, that's it. Grab your pair, make the statement, and wear something that actually stands for something. Or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, corrupt politicians, big tech, fake news, the puppet masters. You can see someone decided to take a shot at President Trump and his administration. And I do believe as Trump continually exposes the deep state system, the money laundering system, the SPLC, and again, this is just the beginning, and everything else, you could see the deep state players, they're going to become more and more desperate. And yes, their rhetoric is going to increase over time. And you have to remember, the deep state players, and like we've said many, many times before, it is run in different layers. And they always want plausible deniability. So they're not going to call up people and say, hey, go ahead and go assassinate President Trump. That's not how this works. What they do is they get people angry. The fake news joins in, their paid influencers join in, and they keep this up. You can see it on social media. You can see it with the fake news. You can see it with the Ds. But they never come out and say, you specifically, I want you to take a gun or strap a bomb to yourself, and I want you to assassinate the president. Because again, that's not how they work. Instead, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing until those people snap. That is what we are seeing. So when you see an individual go after the president, these are the people that have weak minds. They're easy to manipulate. Some of them are on medication. Maybe some of them are on the spectrum. And it's much easier to do. And like we've seen in the past, a lot of this has to do with trans people. So again, you could see how this is being done and how they're pushing this, and they're pushing it very, very hard, because you have to remember, President Trump holds all the cards. Now, are attacks going to die down? No, they're going to increase over time, because remember, as Trump and his administration, and remember, this individual just didn't want to go after Trump. He wanted to take down different people in the administration, because his administration, they're now looking into the criminal syndicate. And as they expose the criminal syndicate, it gets worse and worse for the deep state players. So as Trump and his team go deeper and deeper into the system and expose the system, you can expect that attacks will only intensify. Plus, as Trump gets closer and closer into removing the Federal Reserve System, because remember, that is the source of all their funding, the attacks will only intensify. Remember, we are still at war. This has not ended. And they are fighting back with everything that they have. And yes, along the way, what is Trump doing? He's dismantling their system piece by piece, making it very difficult for them to operate their system. Are we finished dismantling everything that they have? Absolutely not. And you can see they're trying to stop this before he does that. And I do believe they'll continue to do this as time goes on. Because think about what Trump has done already. Out in Venezuela, he set that country free. He arrested the criminal the deep state players put into place to control the oil, to control the drugs, to control human trafficking. Out in Iran, we have the proxy army out there that is doing the bidding for the deep state, the central bankers. They're pushing back right now because what? They don't want to hand over the nuclear material. Because again, what is the nuclear material? It's the uranium. The uranium can be traced. Who's it going to lead back to? It's going to lead back to Obama. It's going to lead back to Hillary Clinton. Plus, they don't want to give up control because if they give up control, their entire economic system goes down the tubes. Remember, they established this back in the late 60s to 70s, and they took us off the gold standard. And now Trump is removing the system that they set up. He's setting Venezuela free. The oil can hit the market. He's setting the United States free. He's removing the regulations so we can drill for oil. He's removing the sanctions in Russia, and he's setting the Middle East free. So if you have the oil flowing from all these different locations, what do you get? You get very, very cheap oil. Plus, you remove the power from the deep state, the central bankers. Remember, their control is their power. And Trump is removing that control and transferring it to him and the people of this country. This is what it means by taking back this country. And yes, every step of the way, the proxy army out in Iran doesn't want to give in. But in the end, they will because they'll have no choice. And you can see every step of the way, as Trump breaks down the deep state system, they're going to become more and more desperate. Why do you think Nancy Pelosi has already started the narrative of Trump switching votes during the election? Now, think about it. This individual, Cole Allen, he was involved in the No Kings protests. He was getting very, very angry with Trump. He was believing the narrative that they were pushing. Think about all those people across the country who are brainwashed. And yes, there are militants, which is Antifa, the illegals, and the rest. Once they put out the narrative that Trump cheated in the election and he switched the votes via the machines, and they start calling him a king, what do you think is going to happen? The people are going to be angry. The people are going to be pissed off. Do you think they will attack? Absolutely. Go back to 2020 for a sec. Did they try to attack him in D.C.? Yes, I do believe they were testing at that point. They were testing to see what could they get away with, what can they do in these instances, and they were collecting that data. I'm talking about the deep state players because they knew later on that eventually they would have to go up against President Trump. You see, at this point, we've seen an information war. We're starting to see that it's turning into a physical war. And yes, the deep state players are going to be pushing a physical war. They've already done by basically radicalizing these individuals. Because again, some of them are on medication, some are on the spectrum, some of them are deeply brainwashed, and they just believe everything that's coming out of the fake news, everything the D's are saying. And you can see this is one of those individuals. So I do believe as time goes on and as Trump and his team completely and utterly dismantle and expose their system, and the people start to realize what the system actually is, these attacks, I should say, will intensify as time goes on. Now think about it. The FBI, the DOJ, and the rest of the agencies, remember, they were developed to protect the deep state system. When you look at the Secret Service and you look at their structure and you look at them, were they developed to protect the president? Yes, in the very, very beginning. Actually, the Secret Service was actually designed and created to go after those individuals that were counterfeiting the U.S. currency. It wasn't originally designed to protect the president. That came later on, I do believe like in 1901, which we'll be getting to in just a sec in this report. But again, the Secret Service, just like all the other agencies, were they there to protect the outsider presidents? Now think about this for a second. Think about all the presidents where there was an attempted assassination or an assassination. Were these presidents, Were they there to take down the deep state players? Were they there to go up against the system? Yes, they were. Why didn't the Secret Service actually protect the presidents in these incidences? Why were certain assassins able to remove those individuals like Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Jackson? That was an attempt. McKinley, one of the tariff men, he was taken out. Think about this for a second. So again, the agency itself, was it there to protect the old guard? And if there were any outsider going up against the deep state players, were they there to protect them? So you have to think about their training. I'm not saying people are doing this on purpose, but you have to think about their training and think about how they were trained. Because again, the FBI was not put in a place to go after criminals. I mean, that's clear as day. All you got to do is look at what Cash has been doing. He's been arresting criminals. The FBI before that, were they arresting criminals? No. How about the DOJ? Was it put in a place to prosecute actual criminals? No, it was put in a place to protect the deep state system. So when you look at the Secret Service, you have to ask yourself a very simple question. Was it designed to allow for the assassination of the outsider presidents? Yes, they might get training. Yes, they might feel like, oh, I have the skills that I need. But were they being trained in a certain way where they actually couldn't protect the outsider president? Because remember, those presidents that are part of the system, they have nothing to worry about. It's the outsider presidents that have to worry. And were they being trained in a certain way? And maybe we need to go through the entire Secret Service system and maybe retrain all of them. That's very, very interesting. We're going to be talking a lot more about this a little bit later and what is happening with the shooter. But let's go out to Iran right now, because it looks like the proxy army out in Iran, they really don't want to make a deal. But you could see there's major, major problems within the Iranian country. Because, again, Trump and team, they've removed a lot of the leaders. There's chaos there. And I do believe you have different factions right now. You have one faction where you have like Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the deep state players telling them, stay in control, don't lose control, I don't care what it takes. You have the other factions where it's probably being driven by the people saying, I think this is our chance to remove the old guard. And you're seeing a lot of this happen right now and a lot of confusion that is going on right now. And I think Trump is pretty much waiting it out right now. And yes, he might be speaking to those individuals that are actually trying to take over the country, but I think they're not there yet. And I think Trump is just waiting that out. And he's also starving the deep state players every step of the way. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: I just canceled the trip of my representatives going to Islamabad, Pakistan to meet with the Iranians. Too much time wasted on traveling, too much work. Besides which, there is tremendous infighting and confusion within their leadership. Nobody knows who's in charge, including them. Also, we have all the cards. They have none. If they want to talk, all they have to do is call President DJT. And you can see every step of the way, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he's putting a lot of pressure on the IRGC, the deep state players. And basically, they're basically strangling them, if you really think about it. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said, I'm amazed that the IRGC has forced the invention of a completely new type of oil trading in cooking oil. As IRGC leadership tries to funnel more and more money into their offshore accounts, the regime's colossal economic mismanagement of Iran has forced the proud Iranian people to barter to feed their families and to become dependent on their neighbors. Under Trump, the United States is committed to supporting the freedom and dignity of the Iranian people after 47 years of corruption. Absolutely. And I think Trump is waiting. And he says, listen, I have all the time in the world. Our Navy's not removed. Our leadership is not removed. Iran is the country that's in trouble. The deep state proxy army is in trouble. And you could see within the country, you could see there's different factions right now that are now moving towards removing the IRGC. Ida Turan explains, I've been scrolling through the IRGC regime channels and their social media lately, the same ones who brag about hunting down protesters on Khamenei's jihad orders. Slowly, it's sinking in for them that they got played hard. They're getting extremely paranoid and keep accusing each other of being coup plotters, spies, or traitors. The funniest comment I read, and something I haven't even thought of myself, was this one comment. Those forces they brought in from Iraq and Afghanistan weren't for the protesters. They were for us. Otherwise, why would Israel not hit them during the war when they were right in the line of fire? It was a sharp, spot-on observation, and I think it's true. Over the past decade, the regime brought in millions of Afghans to act as a people's army defending them. The IRGC trained Afghan Shia fighters and sent them to Syria to fight for Assad. Then after Assad fell, they brought many of them back inside Iran to help suppress the protesters. Right after the 12-day war last summer, they suddenly started deporting them en masse. At least 1.5 million kicked out quickly and forcibly accused of spying for Israel. Clearly, they got scared because they know a mercenary army isn't truly loyal to them. Now, since the war started, a fresh wave of Afghan Shia militias has been coming in anyway and didn't get hit by Israel or U.S. The besieged are finally doing the math. Too bad. Get ready for a coup. One led by defectors inside the regime, coordinated with Israel and the U.S. to purge the hardliners and the besieged. It's coming, and it absolutely is. And Trump is just sitting back and he's just waiting it out. Just waiting for the deep state proxy army to fall. And that's all he has to do because remember, they cut off all income from them. They control the strait. No oil is being sold. They're in trouble. And they know this. And you can see Trump just has to wait it all out. And soon you're going to see that he's going to get whatever he needs. And when you look at the Strait of Hormuz, you could see Trump's strategy. James Thorne explains, Trump's new great game at sea. Donald Trump's maritime strategy is often caricatured as nostalgia. It is better read as a calculated extension of America First into the oceans. The hierarchy is explicit. China's Malacca dilemma is the main course in the new great game. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is the opening move that exposes it. Hormuz shuts. Old Iranian tankers are now shuttled to Cargill Island to buy time as storage tanks reach capacity, and markets are reminded how a few miles of water can reorder prices and politics. Yet Iran is not the prize. The strategic focus is China's dependence on a long, fragile route that runs from Hormuz across the Indian Ocean and through the Strait of Malacca into Chinese ports. The Malacca dilemma as Beijing's economic jugular. Winston Churchill understood that sea lanes and insurance markets are two sides of the same coin. In the easy years of Pax Americana, the City of London prospered by assuming that U.S. sea power was permanent, neutral backdrop, free to price maritime risk while the U.S. Navy guaranteed open arteries. In the emerging order, that role shrinks. The square mile shifts from rulemaker to price taker on decisions made in Washington. Trump's maritime action plan of rebuilding shipyards and the merchant marine, ordering new capital ships and expanding the fleet is not a spasm, but a coherent strategy to ensure that in any prolonged crisis, Washington, rather than Beijing, ultimately controls the Hormuz-Malacca valve. For Europe and the UK, the uncomfortable implication is that the green industrial strategies and political distance from Washington rest on an assumption that may no longer hold, that America will underwrite global sea lanes as a free, good, whatever the new great game demands. And you can see Trump is now taking complete and utter control of everything that they put into place. And now they're being left out in the cold. And you can see all of this is, number one, yes, to remove the central bank's grip. He's decentralizing the oil system that they created, where they had it centralized, where they can control the price via fear. Now he's decentralizing all of this. Plus, all the cheap oil that was going to China for cheap manufacturing, well, now they're going to have to pay the same price as everyone else. So now he's kind of boxed them in. Plus, he can also then use Iran to hand over the nuclear dust, which is the uranium that Obama and Hillary Clinton actually sold to Russia, and that was then put into Iran and North Korea. he could use that against them. So all of this has multiple agendas attached to this. And remember, he's going to be visiting Xi Jinping very, very soon. I think it's in May. And you can see what he's doing right now. He's squeezing China, because you have to remember, the deep state players, the central bankers, everything was being created to shift everything into China. This is why Europe gave up their energy infrastructure. This is why Australia, New Zealand gave up their energy infrastructure. This is why Biden/Obama was pushing the United States to give up the energy infrastructure, because everything was supposed to be moving to China. Manufacturing, the financial industry, you name it. And they were trying to basically shut down Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Canada, yes, Canada too. And they were going to make these countries third world nations, while China controlled pretty much everything. Now, Trump is reversing all of this. Zainab Rabua put this out and said, Trump is squeezing Xi Jinping. This is a major development. Every president said no to this because they were afraid that Beijing would retaliate. It means Washington holds all the cards right now. And that's absolutely true. So Trump now is reordering everything the deep state players have put into place. And now they're losing control. And as soon as Iran breaks and Trump gains control of this entire region, he'll have all the leverage against the deep state players, against China. And they will be bowing to him. And think about how this is all playing out. And he's not even finished. Because think about it, he's going to be setting Cuba free. And then the last, I do believe, is going to be Ukraine. And as he dismantles the deep state system across the globe, the deep state system gets what? Weaker and weaker and weaker. As he dismantles the central bank system across the globe, they get weaker and weaker and weaker. Who gets stronger? Trump does. That's what this is all about. Because remember, the entire system in this country and across the world is being exposed. And if you think like the SPLC is the only organization that was pushing hate across the country, well, it's not the only one. There are thousands of them that were in line with all of this. Remember, the deep state players, they set up a system with backup systems. Remember, it's done in many, many layers to make sure that they're always protected, to make sure that they always can push out their agenda. And Trump now is shutting it all down step by step. And this is why they want Trump and his administration removed. This is why they tried to stop Trump every step of the way. And they're still doing it. Remember, the only course of action they have right now is with the judiciary to delay. The other course of action is to try to get those brainwashed people, those people that are on medication, those people that are on the spectrum, to get them to go out because they're full of anger to do their dirty work. And they're depending on these people to do this. And this way they could say, we had no knowledge of these people. We have no idea that these people were doing this. Remember, it's plausible deniability. They're never going to say, hey, we're the ones who were involved. Here's the paper trail. That's not going to happen. So yes, they're going to use violent rhetoric. They're going to keep repeating it over and over. The fake news is going to keep repeating it over and over. The protests, they're going to keep calling Trump Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. They're going to keep putting out the idea that we should 86-47. That's why Comey put this out there. They were sending signals to all the organizations. It's time. Keep repeating it. Keep repeating it. Let people get angry. Let some of them go after Trump. And we've seen these people actually do this. Let's go back a little bit in time. Go back to, and one bad dude put this out, go back to Nancy Pelosi. Go back to all the people from the very, very beginning. They haven't stopped. Take a listen.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is
white men, most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after...
Then, fast forward past that to Comey saying 8647. Remember, he found the shells in the sand? It was just a coincidence. Well, it wasn't, because they're increasing the rhetoric. They're building it so the brainwashed people, the people on medication, the people that are on the spectrum, snap. That's what they're hoping for. And when you look at the No Kings protests, when you look at all these people protesting around the country, they hold up signs saying 8647, kill President Trump. They have no problem with it whatsoever. And then you have Hassan Piker. Will Chamberlain put this out and said, reminder that Hassan Piker publicly advocated for President Trump's assassination. Perhaps one of the lunatic followers decided to give it a shot. Savannah Hernandez replied to this and said, never forget how immediately after Charlie Kirk's assassination, Destiny stated that we need conservatives to be afraid of getting killed when they go to events. The left consistently calls for us to be killed, hurt, and then cheer when we're killed. Wake up to where we're at. Absolutely. And think about it, just outside of the Correspondents' Dinner in D.C., what do we have? Well, Katie Pavlich put this out. They're holding up signs that says, death to tyrants. Death to all of them. Think about what they're saying right now. Think about what they're pushing. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that people are looking at this saying, oh, this is a psyop, it's a false flag. No, I think what this is that, yes, the deep state players, they're putting out the messages and they're hoping that some of these people go along with it. Now, are they getting some assistance? Maybe, maybe not. I do believe some of them are in the background. Does this mean the FBI is doing it? No. The FBI has completely changed. It means the deep state operatives might be assisting them. Some of them might be working on their own. It all depends. But what's very interesting is that CNN on April 23rd of this year decided to put out an article saying, how would an assassination attempt be staged? Now, the whole article goes into the conspiracy that these assassination attempts are being staged. They're being, these people are being helped. Now, I do believe that, yes, some of them are. But I also believe that the deep state players, they are pushing their agenda very, very hard. And when you look around, and we just mentioned a couple, like 8647, yes, Comey has sent a signal out. Yes, with the No Kings protests, they're getting people very, very angry. With Nancy Pelosi mentioning the elections and how Trump is going to manipulate the elections via the machines, they're actually driving the people to do all of this. Have you ever seen something and instantly know it's going to turn heads? That's exactly what happened when I saw the Trump Never Surrender gold sneakers. These aren't subtle, and they're not supposed to be. Gold finish, red, white, blue details, Never Surrender right on the shoe. You put these on, people notice, period. What surprised me most, they're actually comfortable. Solid build, lightweight, and wearable. Not just something you buy and leave in the box. These are made to be worn, not hidden. And the message hits, Never Surrender, isn't just branding, it's an attitude. Whether you're out running errands or showing up somewhere you want to make a statement, these do exactly that without saying a word. Even if they're not your style, I bet there's someone in your life that would support these in a minute, and they make a great gift. If you got a Trump supporter, a collector, or someone with an unapologetic style, this is a win. They're unique, they're different, and they're bold. If you want to grab a pair, our amazing audience will get a 30% discount while inventories last. Go to themagaoffers.com/X22. That's themagaoffers.com/X22. Don't wait on this. Inventory is moving fast, and once these sell out, that's it. Grab your pair, make the statement, and wear something that actually stands for something, or just click the link in the description. And when anyone looks into it, they really don't want it coming back to them in any way, shape, or form. And they want the brainwashed lunatics to take out the political opponent without people looking into saying, hey, they did this because of what you were doing and what you were saying. Now, there might be others that, are helped along in doing all of this, but you could see what's happening. I mean, look at the poll right now that Kaneko the Great put out. A September 2025 YouGov poll found that 26% of liberals under 45 say political violence is acceptable. 7% of conservatives under 45 said the same thing. The U.S. has a growing problem with violent left-wing extremism that corporate media largely ignores. Recent examples include the assassination attempts on Donald Trump, attacks on Tesla facilities, and the murder of Charlie Kirk. It needs to stop, but it's only getting worse. So think about it. The deep state players, they keep pushing this, and the left gets more and more violent. Now, are there organizations that assist in this? Yes, Antifa assists in this. The illegals assist in this. Those people that are pushing the No Kings rallies and other protests, they're assisting in all this because they want their base to become very, very angry. They want certain individuals to take the next step. And you could see that some of these people, they do it. They basically go after those individuals that are either on some type of medication because they have mental problems. Maybe they're on the spectrum, but they get to these people in a certain way to push them down a certain path. And I do believe that's what we're seeing right now. Now, could this person have assistance from someone? Maybe, maybe not. But you could see that the security within the White House Correspondents' Dinner was actually not that great. Tony Saruga put this out and said, Co-Pink was allowed to breach the ballroom before the bullets flew. The Hinckley-Hilton 2026 edition, when ideological allies get a pass and real threats get in. Before the gunman, armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, charged the Secret Service checkpoint in the Washington Hilton lobby last night, sending President Trump and senior officials into evacuation, Code Pink had already infiltrated the White House Correspondents' Dinner ballroom itself. Medea Benjamin, her pink-clad cadre, weren't stopped at the red carpet or the metal detectors. They protested inside, live, decrying war crimes, while the press corps dined with the very administration they claimed to scrutinize. Not the first time. These same activists have crashed Trump events before, from cabinet dinners to this year's War Crimes Correspondent Dinner rebrand. History repeats at the very hotel where John Hinckley tried to assassinate Reagan in 1981, except this time the radicals were inside first. This isn't mere protest theater. Code Pink's funding trails lead to Neville Roy Singham, the billionaire, bankrolling far-left networks with not just documented ties to CCP-aligned causes, but he gets his marching orders from Xi Jinping himself and adversarial narratives on Iran, Palestine, and U.S. foreign policy. They've disrupted military events, cheered selective peace, and now waltz into the most high-profile presidential gathering of the year. Meanwhile, a lone gunman, Cole Thomas Allen, 31 from California, nearly reached the ballroom. One officer took a round to the vest. Chaos in the halls. And you could see, again, look at the security. Look what they've done here. Look at the training. Does it make sense? Actually, Trump put out a very, very interesting video showing the Secret Service standing around because everyone was in the ballroom already. And you had the metal detectors. You had the place where you put your belongings on the belt. Now, upstanding citizens, they will follow the rules. They will go through the metal detectors. They will show all the objects that they have. Criminals don't work that way. Criminals will sneak in. Criminals will run through. Criminals do this because they're criminals. So the metal detectors, the X-ray belt system, that is made for everyday upstanding citizens. Those aren't the people you have to worry about. It's the people that go around all of this. And you could see it as clear as day. Why was the Secret Service on the sidelines, talking to each other, looking at their phones? They should have been standing in front of the metal detectors, standing in front of the X-ray machines, and they should be on the ready. Nobody passes. You stop, we look at you. Now, put all your objects on the belt. They should always be in ready position. But this video shows they were not. And they were caught by surprise. Why were they caught by surprise? Because they were standing on the sidelines. And this brings me back to my initial question. Going back in time, was the Secret Service trained in a way that they weren't actually protecting the outsider president? Think about it for a second. So this is very, very interesting. Even Kerry Lake says President Trump was going to deliver an incredible, humorous speech tonight, and I'm sure it was going to be a huge victory. Unfortunately, that was not how the night played out. A deranged lunatic showed up with a gun. I was there. Security was terrible at the event. It was the easiest event I have ever gained access to that the president was at. It was so bad, we talked about it at our table before the shots rang out. Remember, 90% of the people in the room were part of the fake news who spread abject and despicable lies about President Trump. They have sowed so much division in our country. I am so grateful to God that President Trump is safe tonight. I am so grateful that nobody in the room was killed. My kids who knew I was in the room tonight were frantically calling me, and I could not reach them until much later to tell them I was okay. Mainstream media must take responsibility for the discord they have sown across this great country. So think about this for a second. The security was absolutely terrible. And again, many people have said this, that Secret Service is really not up to the task. So think about it. The agency is pretty big. Does this have to be restructured just like the FBI? Remember, the FBI was designed to protect the deep state system. Does it have to be restructured like the DOJ? The DOJ was not prosecuting the actual criminals. So now we're at the Secret Service point. Yes, I know Trump brought in Sean to restructure it, but I think this has to be accelerated right now. And no Secret Service person should be on the sidelines, even when everyone is in the room, because this is when the actual danger happens. When you look at Mar-a-Lago, the person that came with the gas can and the gun didn't enter Mar-a-Lago during the day when everyone was going through the metal detectors. The person came in at 1, 2 o'clock, realizing security was going to be a lot lighter at that point. Yes, the Secret Service, they did their job. They stopped the intruder. But again, they wait for those moments. This individual waited for everyone to go in. This person waited for everyone to become relaxed and then ran through it. And if you noticed what happened when you watched the video, everyone was caught by surprise. So the shooter knew exactly what he was going to do. He knew exactly how he was going to do this. He knew exactly where to run. Because again, he knew exactly what his plan was. He planned this from the very, very beginning. Trumpy put out a photo of the individual. He's laying on the floor. He's alive. And he was handcuffed. And it looks like his shirt is off, and maybe they were looking for other objects or bombs or things like that. Paul Sperry put this out and said, shooting suspect Cole Thomas Allen was a guest of the Washington Hilton and assembled his weapon on site and was not struck by Secret Service gunfire, even though he shot a Secret Service agent, which is very, very interesting. So who is this individual? Well, it looks like he was an engineer, a game developer, a scientist, a teacher. He worked at Caltech. He was the teacher. He has pronouns in his bio on X, he, him. So that is very, very interesting. He was also a Kamala Harris supporter. He donated $25 to Act Blue. So he's definitely a Democrat. So what stations has he been listening to? Most likely CNN, MSNBC. He's listening to the influencers that are going up against Trump. He's taking that side. He's talking to other people that are pushing violence on social media. Andrew Colvin put this out and said, Cole Allen, the gunman from last night's White House correspondent dinner, maintained an active online presence, especially on the left-wing social media platform Blue Sky, where he went by the handle Cold Force with multiple references, violence, and guns. In one post, he calls President Trump the Antichrist. In another, he recommends buying guns in reaction to Trump's DOJ exploring ways to ban firearms purchases from transgenders. In one post, he calls Trump a sociopathic mob boss, and another referred to him as a traitor with known connections to Putin, repeating a favorite left-wing Russian hoax talking point. He also attacks J.D. Vance for advocating an end to America's funding the war in Ukraine and for his criticism of the Pope. He seems pretty fixated on Ukraine more generally. He also frequently interacts with Will Stansel's Blue Sky account, among others. So this is very, very interesting. So basically, he was taking in the narrative that the deep state players were putting out there. And he was getting angrier and angrier as time went on. Jackie Henrich put this out and said, new info on the WHCD shooter suspect, Cole Allen, from the White House. I'll be talking with the President Trump about all of this in 30 minutes. The suspect written manifesto clearly stated he wanted to target administration officials. He also had a ton of anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric on his social media accounts. Allen's brother had notified New London PD of Allen's alleged manifesto he had sent to his family members prior to the incident. Secret Service and Montgomery County Police interviewed Avriana Allen, Allen's sister, at their residence in Rockville, Maryland. The following highlights from the interview. Allen said her brother had a tendency to make radical statements, and his rhetoric constantly referenced a plan to do something to fix the issues with today's world. Confirmed Allen purchased 2 handguns and a shotgun from Cap Tactical Firearms and kept them stored at their parents' home, and that their parents were unaware that Allen was keeping the firearms in the home. Allen would regularly go to the shooting range to train with his firearms. Allen was part of a group called the Wide Awakes. Allen attended No Kings protests in California at some point. So think about this for a second. And think about what we talked about a little while ago, that Antifa and many of these individuals, they've been training with their weapons. Now, think about, as we approach the midterms, what Nancy Pelosi said, that Trump is going to manipulate the elections via the machines. Now, think about the No Kings protests. Think about what the deep state players are planning for. I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that they're planning for riots. And yes, they're going to want to push a civil war. And I do believe on top of that, they'll probably use some type of cyber attack to actually shut power. Because again, when you have fear driving something and there's an invisible attack, remember the virus was invisible, people are afraid. When you hear gunfire, when you hear these people on the streets, you're afraid. And you could see that they are going to try to push some type of civil war. Now, is this going to work? Absolutely not. Does Trump and the Patriots know the playbook? Absolutely. They know that this is coming. So let's unpack what's going on here. And Eric Schwalm put this out. He left California and was in D.C. at the hotel where the White House correspondent dinner was being held. So he took an Amtrak train. He didn't fly. He took an Amtrak train from L.A. to Chicago to D.C. He packed his weapons in his suitcase, according to the law, and it was stored in baggage. Number 2, imagine the intent he had to have in order to travel that distance, all the while thinking about what he was going to do. He either moved several weapons or procured them in and around D.C. and figured out a way to get them in proximity. No, he brought them with him. Very simple. He brought them with him, put them into baggage. You can do this with your weapons. You can fly with your weapons. You can bring them on trains as long as you follow the rules and the law. That's what he did. So he brought them to D.C. He took the time to load the weapons onto his body, and nobody noticed. Well, he assembled the weapons in the hotel. He was a guest of the hotel. So he walked into the hotel with the weapons because they were in his luggage, and he was able to keep them there. Not that hard to do. Now, again, if the White House correspondent dinner was going to be held at the hotel, I do believe, since the president was going to be there, there should have been metal detectors, there should have been security, and everyone should have been checked coming into the hotel, right? Because how do you know what people are bringing in there? Maybe they had a bomb in their suitcase, and maybe they were going to blow up the entire building with the president in there. I mean, just think about this for a second. Number 5, now here's the kicker. In his hidden location, he was somehow aware that the president was in the room and was seated. How, when was he aware of this part? Well, this was televised. This was televised to the entire country. He could be watching the broadcast. Okay, I see Trump. He's there. The administration's there. Everyone's sitting down. Now is the time. Number 6, if he wasn't a guest at the WHCD and he couldn't see the president from where he was, how did he know? Again, the television. Number 7, it's not like he could go look into the room. He didn't have to. So basically, he already cased the joint. He was the guest there. He knew how to get into that area. He knew what direction to run. Very simple. And he knew when he looked at the Secret Service, oh, look, they're on the sidelines. Everyone's in there. I'm watching the broadcast. I see President Trump there. I see Melania sitting there. I see the Secret Service, they're a little bit more relaxed because everyone's inside now. We've done our job. We scanned everyone. Everyone's clean. So we don't have to do that much more. So we can go on our phones. We can sit on the side and we don't have to pay attention anymore. This was his chance. He ran in there at full speed, ran right past them. They were caught by surprise. They didn't know what the hell was going on. Yes, they drew their weapons. But if you notice, they were hesitant to run. And then all of a sudden, they started to run. So this individual was able to do this with no problem whatsoever. Now, if they were standing in front of the metal detectors, in front of all this, 4 of them, 3 of them, standing there, ready, stopping anyone. No, it's already started. You cannot enter. It would have been a very different outcome. So this goes back to the training once again. Now, the other thing that's really, really weird is that this account, Henry Martinez, it was created back in 2023. There's only one post on it. And check with AI. Grok said there is no manipulation whatsoever. It has the name Cole Allen. That's it. December 21st, 2023, Cole Allen. Now, on top of this account, the header is a very interesting piece of art. It's Distinct Mind. It was created going all the way back to, I think, 2021, which is very, very interesting. Now, certain individuals took this and said, wait a minute, look at the art very carefully. Is that Trump holding up his fist? Is this when he got shot in Butler? MJ Truth Ultra says, the events last night just got even weirder. That Pepe account that posted the shooter's name a few years ago, his header background, I found the source of that image. Besides being later linked to a Time Machine website, the image looks like a superimposed image of President Trump at the Butler assassination attempt. Do you see it? This is the wild part. That original image even predates the Butler assassination attempt. So this image was created on October 28, 2021. The Butler assassination attempt occurred on July 13, 2024. So what's very interesting is that when you look at it, it really looks like it's Trump. And when you take the image and you remove the painting, the outline is very, very precise. The other thing that's very interesting is that one of the individuals, the woman, looks like she's still on duty, and it looks like she was also the woman at Butler. Maybe that's not true, but she looks very, very similar. So that is very, very interesting. So is this a coincidence? Maybe, maybe not, but it's kind of strange, don't you think? Now, again, they have this guy in custody. We have Janine Pirro. She announced that there's going to be charges. 2 counts of using a firearm during a crime of violence, assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon, and there's going to be many, many other charges. And once again, this individual had a manifesto. Open Source Intel put this out and said, the manifesto said he wanted to target administration officials. Investigators also found extensive anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric across his social media accounts. And this is very, very interesting that once again, we have an individual with a manifesto. So here are some key excerpts from the manifesto. Targets, prioritize Trump administration officials. Highest to lowest ranking, excluding FBI Director Kash Patel. Secret Service only if necessary. Avoided hotel staff, guests, and most law enforcement unless they interfered. Justification, frame the attack as a moral Christian duty against alleged administration crimes, rape, murder, detention camps. Address objections like turn the other cheek by saying it doesn't apply to complicity in others' oppression. Apologies. Express regret to family, student, colleagues, and bystanders for betraying trust and endangering them. Closing rant, criticized insane security lapses at the event and ended with stay in school, kids. So that is very, very interesting. So he was a guest. He traveled by train. He brought his weapons. He hid them from his parents. He listened to the fake news. He talked about violence, and look what happened here. Now, once again, we need to start to look at the Secret Service. We need to look at security. And once again, I think this has to be ramped up because, again, the attacks are only going to intensify as time goes on. Because as Trump continually breaks down the entire deep state system, they're going to become more and more panicked because, again, they lose leverage when they're exposed. When everything's made transparent and the truth is shown, they lose control. But let's go back a little bit in time. Let's go back to the Secret Service and how this all began. So it was established as a division within the Department of Treasury, with William P. Wood sworn in as its first chief. Its sole initial mission was to suppress counterfeiting of U.S. currency after the Civil War. Counterfeiting was rampant. Nearly 1/3 of all currency in circulation was fake, which threatened the stability of the young nation's financial system. Of course, after the Civil War, we had a lot of, the South and the North, they're creating currency. I do believe the central bank was also involved in this because, again, Abraham Lincoln didn't want to borrow the currency from the central bank system and created the greenback. And you can see at this point in time, what were they trying to do? They were trying to infiltrate the system once again. So Abraham Lincoln signed legislation authorizing the Secret Service on April 14, 1865, the same day he was assassinated, but officially began operation under the Treasury Secretary Hugh McCulloch a few months later. So basically it was created, the Secret Service was created to control the counterfeiting. And once again, this had nothing to do with protecting the President of the United States at that time. But in 1901, after the assassination of President William McKinley, now that's interesting, William McKinley, he was all for tariffs. 1901 was right before 1913. They removed William McKinley. And then all of a sudden, the Secret Service was brought in to protect the presidents, to make them feel like they're secure. That's interesting. Why did they want to remove McKinley? Because they wanted to set up a central bank system. What did McKinley do? He had a tariff system. There was no central bank system. The country was very, very wealthy. I think Trump mentioned this many, many times before. So that is very, very interesting. So think about what they did here. And remember, the Washington Hilton is the site of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And this is the same hotel where Reagan was shot in 1981. So let's go back a little bit in time. Abraham Lincoln pretty much went against the central bank system. Then you have Andrew Jackson, got rid of the central bank system, the second one. Then you had McKinley, who there was no central bank system, but he was using tariffs and the country was very, very wealthy. They removed him, and all of a sudden the tariff system, slowly but surely, was being removed as the central bank was pushing to come in. Then if you fast forward to Kennedy, you can see he was going up against the deep state players, going up against the central bank system. Reagan, the same thing. Now, here we are with President Trump. So when you start to look at this, you start to see some type of pattern that's going on right now. And as Trump continually goes after the central bank system, because you have to remember the central bank system, this is where they get their funding. Without the central bank system, this system that you see out there today, it doesn't work. Because you need the money to fund it. Now, think about this. Since this happened, we could see there are many people out there trying to convince everyone that Trump did this. This is his psyop. He set it all up. Now, I don't believe that whatsoever. Again, Trump is not going to stoop to the level of the deep state players. And people are saying, well, he's doing this because he wants the ballroom to be built, so he needed an event to push this. No, he didn't need an event. The ballroom's already being built. And every step of the way, no matter how much the deep state players try to stop him, he's going to win. He doesn't need the event. Can he use the event to push the ballroom? Yeah, he can convince the people that's why we need it. Matt Walsh put this out and said, just to be clear, the theory that leftists are running with is that the Trump administration somehow convinced a registered Democrat to volunteer to go to prison for the rest of his life so that they could use him as a patsy for a third-stage assassination attempt. One that they apparently believe was concocted mostly to justify building a White House ballroom that's already being built anyway. That's their theory of the case here. And it's absolutely ridiculous because Trump, he already got approval to build it. Yeah, the fake judge, not the fake news, the activist judges, the corrupt judges, yeah, they're going to try to delay it. But again, they're going to fail every step of the way because they don't have the rule of law on their side. But is Trump going to use this to say, listen, this is why we should never have this in these hotels. This is why we need a bulletproof area. This is why we need a bomb-proof area. This is why we need security set up all the time in the location where we don't have to come in and set it up. He put this out and said, what happened last night is exactly the reason that our great military, Secret Service, law enforcement, and for different reasons, every president for the last 150 years have been demanding that a large, safe, and secure ballroom be built on the grounds of the White House. This event would have never happened with the military top-secret ballroom currently under construction at the White House. It cannot be built fast enough. While beautiful, it has every highest level security feature there is, plus there are no rooms sitting on top for unsecured people to pour in, and is inside the gates of the most secure building in the world, the White House. The ridiculous ballroom lawsuit brought by a woman walking her dog, who has absolutely no standing to bring such a suit, must be dropped immediately. Nothing should be allowed to interfere with this construction, which is on budget and substantially ahead of schedule. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. And he's absolutely right. Again, they don't want these things because it makes it a lot easier for what? For the deep state players to go after the presidents they don't want, the outsiders. And I think this is becoming apparently clear. Elon Musk says, if they're willing to die to assassinate, imagine what they will do if they gain political power. Absolutely. Now, once again, the D's and the fake news and everyone else, they're all trying to just defend themselves. Oh, no, we need safety. Oh, no, we need to protect. But again, they're saying one thing while their actions are doing another. And you can see they're going to be pushing and pushing and pushing, and they're going to continually push against Trump. And yes, the fake news, the D's, certain influencers, they're all going to be pushing violence against Trump because the name of the game is what? To take back control. Trump is trying to take back control of this country, and they're trying to take back control from Trump. So you could see there's a definite war going on. Now, Trump said something that was very, very interesting. He says that he has studied assassinations, and the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. So Trump is saying, historically, those presidents that go up against the deep state players, those presidents that push against everything that they have in place, they're the ones that are being assassinated, or there's attempt assassination on them. Now, why is he saying that? Because he's letting everyone know that he's the outsider and the deep state players are coming for him. Because what is he doing? He's reversing everything that they did. He's exposing their entire system. He's dismantling their entire system. And they are trying to stop him every step of the way. That is what he's saying. Now, so if you go back a little bit in time, what do you see? You see Kennedy trying to shut down the deep state system. You see Reagan trying to shut down the deep state system. Now we have Trump trying to shut down the deep state system. And Trump is succeeding. And this is why they keep making hit after hit after hit. This is why they tried everything to get rid of him. So we could see at this point in time, the deep state players are going to become more and more desperate as time goes on. And when you look at the SPLC and USAID, this is all part of their system. And who runs all of these different organizations? Well, if you go back a little bit in time, it was the CIA. Think about it. But now Trump has control over these agencies. He's taking the control away from them. He's taking USAID away from them. He's taking the SPLC away from them. Last Refuge put this out and said, this is the point everyone misses when they discuss USAID. It is factually accurate that USAID is the CIA influence operation. So if SPLC was being funded by USAID, then who was ultimately funding the SPLC operation? All roads lead to Langley. Yes, it was all these individuals, and Trump is completely and utterly shutting it down. But listen to what Trump says about the Southern Poverty Law Center. He says it's one of the greatest political scams in American history, has been charged with fraud. This is another Democrat hoax, along with Act Blue and many others. If it is true, the 2020 presidential election should be permanently wiped from the books and be of no further force or effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So basically, what happened in 2020 should be removed because the SPLC, USAID, and the rest were involved in rigging that election, which means Biden was never president. Now, think about it. Like we said from the very, very beginning, the deep state system is much deeper and wider than everyone can imagine. And they built their system up in layers. So think about this for a second. Just because you see USAID being dismantled and SPLC being dismantled and brought up on charges, do you think that's it? Well, it isn't. C3 put this out and said, the SPLC is only one of 16,551 civil rights, social actions, and advocacy nonprofits, NGOs in America. Think about what they did. They built all these systems to do what? To protect their system. So they built layers of protection, and they used the protection to divide the people, to send them in the wrong direction. So you never know where the enemy is. This is why Trump at this point in time is exposing their system, dismantling their system, because if you're going to go after the king, what do? You got to remove all the pawns. You got to remove the pieces on the board, the pieces that are protecting the king. Who's the king right now? I think it's going to be Obama. All roads lead to Obama. Is this going to lead to other people above him? Absolutely. But you can see at this point in time, he's dismantling it so there is no problem once we go after these individuals. Because, again, if you remove all the pieces, what are you going to use? There's no false flags. There's no ammunition. There's nothing. They got nothing. And think about this. Since it came out that the SPLC was indicted, isn't it weird that Candace Owens fled the country? Nick Fuentes fled the country? Ian Carroll claims he's scared and a victim? Sneeko has paused his streams. What's going on here? Joe Lane says, what are the odds that the SPLC was paying these podcasters to sow division? That's interesting. He's pointing to drop 4943, October 30th. Fact checkers creating an effort to reinforce propaganda digestion. The battle to prevent truth from reaching the people. The battle to maintain and push division. Divided you're weak. Divided you fight each other. Divided you pose no threat. System of control. Information warfare. Groups like the SPLC exist for two reasons. To foment hate and division. And also to raise money off that same hate and division. So do these podcasters. Same playbook. Information warfare. And this is what Trump has been doing. They've been following the money every step of the way. And you can see the deep state players, they are in trouble. But Trump, he put this out about Candace Owens. He says, Candace Owens' stock, which was never very high, has fallen a long way. Her attack on the First Lady of France is despicable. I believe in this case, without verification, she's an extremely low IQ individual. Very, very interesting. So look at all the organizations, look at the podcasters, look what they've been doing. And now they're fleeing. I don't know why they're going to different locations, why they stopped. But again, it's very, very odd. And you're going to see other organizations that have been pushing the same exact thing. And very interestingly, Stephen Miller put this out and said, speaking as a Jew, ADL is not a Jewish organization. It is an ultra-left activist org that pushes radical transgenderism, border erasure, police dismantlement, and the demolition of free speech, deploying rank, slander, bullying, and character assassination to achieve its aims. Elon Musk says exactly. So when you look at all these different organizations, everything that they set up, I think it's becoming very, very clear that the deep state system set all of this up to protect their system, to keep everyone divided, to make everyone believe there was hate everywhere. And think about it. These organizations became much, much larger when Obama came into office. Basically, he set up everything to begin dividing the country on a scale that we have never seen before. Think about that for a second. And think about how Trump now is setting it up so he can go after all the deep state players. Think about what's happening out in Iran. Think about how he's removing the protection of the deep state players by removing their system. This is all to get to Hillary, all to get to Obama. So this way, all the pieces are gone. They have no protection whatsoever. And once we have all the leverage, when Trump has all the leverage, the House and Senate, we replace the judges in the judiciary. Iran's gone. Venezuela's gone. All the organizations, all the NGOs stripped down. They got nothing. The money shut off. At that point, Trump has all the leverage to go after these people. Trump, he put this out. He's pointing to Juliet Schwartz, and it says the skiff. Hillary Clinton funded, approved, and created the Steele dossier. Barack Obama called the shots, and Brennan's CIA did the dirty work. The evidence is clear. Treason was committed, and now they must pay, or they will do it again. Americans demand it. Trump is continually putting this out, letting everyone know this is our direction. And remember, we need to dismantle the system first so they can't do us harm. They can't confuse the narrative. And we must remove the activist, corrupt judges out of the judiciary. Everything must be set up so Trump has the leverage. Now, a lot of people are making a really big deal that the D.C. subpoenas for Brennan grand jury testimony are withdrawn, and they were replaced by requests for voluntary interviews. So people are like, oh, see, nothing's going to happen. No, that is not the case whatsoever. The issue around the CIA targeting President Trump are extensive, attached to numerous individuals and entities, and generally complex. Normally, in an investigation of this scope, it would begin with questions to the outer perimeter individuals who are carrying out the instructions of those above them. It is from those types of lower-level interviews that material is gathered for use in examining the truthfulness of those who organized and directed the operations. In the example of John Brennan's false statement to Congress surrounding the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, or the inclusion of the Steele dossier in the analytical material, there are key people within the Directorate of Analysis, National Security Agency, and National Intelligence Council who can give firsthand statements about Brennan's instructions. Those types of interviews are just as important as questioning John Brennan himself. And for obvious reasons, those interviews should come first. Absolutely. So this is exactly what they're doing to go after the deep state players. And it looks like now they're using the interviews to build the case. And yes, we only have one chance to do this right, and it must be done correctly because it must hold weight. It must follow the rule of law, and it must be airtight. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is that the DOJ, they have reinstated the firing squad as official federal execution methods. So that's very, very interesting because if you go back a little bit in time, if you go back to Biden-Garland, they actually went ahead and they removed this and said there will no longer be federal executions. So the department has rescinded the Biden-Garland moratorium on federal execution and has authorized seeking death sentences against 44 defendants. So now the firing squads are back. Is Trump and his administration, are they getting prepared for when we have trials? I do believe so. Now, think about what else Trump is doing right now in D.C. And I think he's making it a point to let everyone know that Obama and the deep state players, they were there to destroy this country, destroy everything about it. When you look at D.C., for example, you could see they just let it go. They didn't care. And if you look at the reflecting pool, you can see it was a complete and utter disaster. Fountains didn't work in D.C. The White House is a disaster because, again, they were in the process of destroying the country. Trump is in the process of taking the power back and restoring the country. And he put out a very interesting post. It's on Truth, and it says, Hussein Obama. It shows the reflecting pool. It's dirty, disgusting. He did nothing about it. Why? Because he didn't care. He was destroying the country. Trump shows the new reflecting pool. It's all cleaned up, and it looks absolutely amazing. And he writes, coming soon. So Trump, he put this out and said, this is the reflecting pool at the Lincoln Memorial, 2,500 feet, the length of the tallest building in the world, starting the final phase of renovation that was supposed to cost $301 million and take 3 years, and was instead done with the help of Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum and the entire department, and a much better final result. $2 million in 1 week. I do many such things for government, and as president, it is my honor to do so. This is just one of them. Another, and one far more exciting, is most favored nations for prescription drugs, where the United States pay the highest price in the world, and now they're paying the lowest, with a drop of 50 to 60, 70, and even 80%. President DJT. And then he was able to get fountains working. He put this out on Truth. The first time Lafayette Park fountains opposite the White House have worked in decades. My great honor to have funded this project and many others and helped President DJT. So let's see. He got rid of the crime. He's restoring D.C., restoring our capital, because, again, what was Obama doing? What was the deep state players doing? They were destroying this country. And he's letting you know he's reversing everything that they have done. And he's letting everyone know that we must pass the Save America Act and we must terminate the filibuster. I think the filibuster is much more important than the Save America Act because, again, Trump has the ability to use the executive order to show that it's a national security threat to make everyone use voter ID, one-day voting, and paper ballots. But he did put this out, and he said, not passing the Save America Act will lead to the worst results for a political party in the history of the United States Senate. An unrecoverable death wish. Likewise, the filibuster. Terminate it now, President DJT. At this point in time, we could see the deep state players, the rhinos, they're not going to pass the Save America Act. Because, again, if they do, they're never going to be elected again. If they do, the uniparty is going to be exposed. It's going to show that the rhinos and the Ds, they have nobody that's going to vote for them. People are going to see a very, very low turnout for them. And this is going to destroy everything that they've done. So do I believe they're going to push back every step of the way to make sure that the Save America Act is not passed? I do believe so. Trump keeps pushing them to do this because he wants the people to understand who they are. Now, maybe they will pass it, but at this point in time, I don't think so. And Trump is letting everyone know if we don't get rid of the filibuster, the Ds are going to do it no matter what. And they're going to take complete and utter control. This is why he has the executive order in his back pocket, because he knows what he's up against. He knows the deep state players are going to try to stop him every step of the way. He's going to keep pushing because he wants them to do the right thing. But in the end, if they don't do the right thing, he will do the right thing. Because once again, he knows how important it is for us to get control of the House and Senate. Because once again, without the House and Senate, the plan can't move forward. We need the House, we need the Senate to push certain laws forward. We need to remove a lot of the judges. And in the end, we need to remove the Federal Reserve and most of the laws that they put into place. So once again, we could see how important this is. And Trump didn't leave it up to chance. He didn't leave it up to the rhinos. He didn't leave it up to the Ds. He always makes sure that he has another plan to make sure that no matter what happens, he can stop them. Why? Because the patriots are in control. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.